Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all. EDDIE-FICATION with consulting human resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited, Antillean Group, Country Cold Store.
Self-isolation is not a prison sentence, but it's the safest way to protect the people around you from possibly getting sick. Continue to comfortably buy your groceries and whatever you need, even when in quarantine. Use Coop Bank's e-banking to transfer funds to a close friend or family member's account and get them to do your shopping for you. Log on to www.grenadacoopbank.com and sign up for Coop Bank's e-banking.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Co-op Bank introduces e-payments, our new e-banking feature that allows you to send money to friends or family. E-payments, a swift, simple, and secure way of transferring money.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
You are offered a wonderful opportunity to win a grocery coupon to the tune of $250, redeemable at any of the food fairs. All you've got to do to qualify is like, share, comment, and follow EDDIE-FICATION on any of our social media platforms. This promotion continues for all of March with one draw on Friday, April 1st. The winner will be announced immediately after advising the said winner. Any overseas winner is asked to kindly transfer their winning to a relative or friend who lives in the state of Grenada. I am extending an open invitation to any individual or company tuned in to come on board and assist with our drive to whip up an interest in getting more of our young people to pull up their chair and pay attention to the instructive thoughts and ideas shared on this program as we seek to edify them to make better decisions that would help to shape a better future for themselves and the future security of the nation as a whole. Join me in bringing excitement to our audience with a chance to win something that can brighten their corner in these challenging times. Reach out and touch someone as regularly as you can afford. Of course, due recognition will be given to you for your active partnership in this regard. Thanks in advance.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Oh, yes, folks. And I'd like to just welcome you to my 66th independent session. And of course, the 12th for 2022, as we continue to send good vibes into the universe so that we attract the miracles and good tidings that we all deserve in spite of our many challenges. And God knows there are many. I am pleased to advise that this live can also be viewed on YouTube simultaneously. And of course, as the weeks and months go by, we're going to add, Twitter, Instagram, and whatever else, because we are being pushed in the direction of broadening the expanse of our reach. I take great pleasure in preempting my planned and scheduled delivery for this week to pay fitting tribute to Mr. George Anthony Richard Menezes, Chairman and Managing Director of George F. Huggins and Company Grenada Limited, For all of 50 years, a stalwart in the business and economic life of Grenada, our youthful population would do well to pull up their chairs today and pay close attention to the achievements of this trailblazer and barrier breaker, who, though not born here in Grenada, having made Grenada his home since 1962, has never looked back, and at various tender ages showed how much of an achiever he could have been. You see, Mr. Menezes did not allow his environment, how he was raised, and other people's expectations of him to set limits for his life. Because we adapt to what's around us, and Mr. Menezes knew this from an early age, he was not prepared to fit in and be like everyone else. As godly as he was, he knew that the Master did not create him to be average, but rather to stand out as he has created all of us so to do. A big thank you to all of you for tuning in once more, even without notice. Welcome to the newcomers to EDDIE-FICATION, our 107th edition, powered by Grenada Cooperative Bank, Antillean Group, and of course, Country Cold Store. All local giants in their own right, each of which started with humility and are today enjoying a great measure of exaltation by God's grace. I want to remind you that our draw for March 2022, the $250 gift certificate for groceries redeemable at any of the food fairs, will take place on Friday, 1st of April. If you desire to have your name called in the announcement as the winner, you know what to do. You're required to share, comment, follow, and like EDDIE-FICATION. And now we've added YouTube. Do the same, folks. Do the same. Your name can be in the first 3 drawn for each week, which will be put in the final draw on April 1st. You're required to continue to share, comment, follow, and like EDDIE-FICATION, whether you look at it live or after the fact. So just, get your sharing hands working so that you can actually do what you are required to do if you so desire to take home that coupon, that gift certificate, because $250 is nothing to scoff at these days. So get to the program, folks.
EDDIE-FICATION with consultant human resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited, Antillean Group, Country Cold Store.
The strength of views and opinions expressed during EDDIE-FICATION are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and or affiliates of this program.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Oh, lovely folks. And of course, I'd like to just welcome you back. Our subject matter today is in tribute to Mr. G.A. Richard Menezes, former chairman and managing director, George F. Huggins and Company, Grenada Limited, who passed on Friday last. May his soul rest in peace, because he deserves eternal rest, having done so much with his life. He was born on a fair Tuesday, September 16th, 1941, and raised in Providence Estate in Berbice, Guyana. Mr. George Anthony Richard Menezes attained his secondary education from the St. Stanislaus College, a then all-boys school run by the Jesuit Order of Priests. He obtained his tertiary level qualifications from the Canadian Bankers Institute in Toronto, Canada. Mr. Menezes made Grenada his home in 1962, when at the age of 21, he was transferred from Guyana while working at the Royal Bank of Canada there. During his time as chief cashier and eventually manager of RBC's sub-branch in St. George's, he met Nola Christiana Brown, a beautiful young Vincentian damsel of a woman who would later become his wife and partner for life. In 1966, the same year he married Nuala, and at the tender age of 25, that is, he was transferred to Royal Bank's Pointe-à-Pierre branch in Trinidad as assistant manager. His tenure with the bank ended that very year when he accepted a position with the firm of George F. Huggins and Company, Grenada Limited, as credit controller. Now, very soon, young George Richard Tomeni was recognized for his acumen beyond numbers. In 1970, at the age of 29, he was promoted to the position of marketing manager of retail, where he was placed in charge of the company's operations on Yonge Street, St. George's. In 1973, he was appointed to the board of directors of Huggins, and on the 1st of January 1974, at the tender age of 32, Mr. G.A. Richard Menezes became the youngest managing director ever to be appointed at the firm of Huggins. Now, under Mr. Menezes' stewardship, Huggins flourished. Growth and expansion was his mission. There were times, however, which presented great challenges. But on January 21st, 1974, mere weeks into his tenure as managing director of Huggins, the young managing director stood face to face with the horror of Bloody Monday. The shooting of Rupert Bishop, father of the late Maurice Bishop, sent thousands of demonstrators into a frenzy. Everybody's stores was looted. Huggins' automotive division on the Carronage was completely vandalized. While himself part of the effort that evening to secure the building, a young man approached Mr. Menezes to advise that his father had just passed away. Dutiful to a fault, Mr. Menezes completed the task of securing the premises before leaving for home to see to his father and family. Evidently a man of duty, Mr. Menezes was unquestionably also a man of great vision. Some of the high points of his career included the establishment of Grenada's first break bulk discount store, Buy Right Supermarket, which opened its doors on the 19th day of November, 1974, the same year of Bloody Monday and the looting, the complete looting of St. George's, with specific reference on everybody's stores. They used to have a supermarket. So it was timely that Buy Right Supermarket was opened in the same block, not the same location, but the same block. Now, 15 years later, its sister store, Foodland Lagoon Road, revolutionized supermarket shopping in Grenada with its modern design, great variety, and comfortable aisles. Mr. Menezes was, of course, involved from the turning of the sod to the turning of the key on the morning of September 22nd, 1989. Now, many thought that his departure from the sole importation of Japanese manufactured vehicles in the 1980s was misguided. Today, Hyundai is a force to be reckoned with in the world, with the local market no exception. As vehicle sales grew over the years, there emerged a dire need for expansion. Mr. Menezes' vision then turned to the south. The establishment of a full-service automobile dealership on Maurice Bishop Highway in 1993 remained up to his passing one of his proudest accomplishments. Now, the managing director's vision later turned to the seas and skies. In 1997, adding to a flourishing cruise ship agency representation, Huggins was appointed agent for tropical shipping, which remains today Grenada's leading containerized sea cargo provider. The establishment of Swift Air Cargo Handlers, agents for Amerijet International, was again another watershed moment in his career. Mr. Menezes took personal pleasure in overseeing this operation directly in its early stages, as he always had a keen interest in aircraft and aviation. It was, in essence, a labor of love. I want to just come up here for air for a little bit to give you time to do some digesting, because there's quite a bit to share on this high achiever. Very, very high achiever indeed.
EDDIE-FICATIon with consultant human resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited, Antillean Group, Country Cold Store.
The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and or affiliates of this program.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Lovely. Welcome back, folks. From 1973 to 1992, Huggins Grenada was a member of the T. Geddes Grant group of companies. Then Group Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Roy Callister, frequented Grenada, and Mr. Menezes was in turn required to travel often for group meetings. Both gentlemen found mutual respect for each other, which very soon developed into a strong bond of friendship. For many years, Mr. Callister, Mr. Menezes and their families remained close until Mr. Callister passed on a few years ago. Now, in 1992, Geddes Grant merged with Neal and Massey Holdings, and Grenada effectively became part of the largest conglomerate in the Caribbean. While the Massey ownership brought with it many new opportunities, austere demands were made on Mr. Menezes, who was held to intense reporting schedules. He was nonetheless well up to the task. When Group CEO Jesus Pazos proceeded on retirement, Mr. Menezes was thrilled to learn that a gentleman he greatly admired, Mr. Bernard Dulal Whiteway, was named his successor. Their friendship grew deeply over the years to the point where Mr. Menezes considered Bernard amongst his closest friends and found nothing but kindness and support from this great man. The year 1998 presented perhaps the most defining moment in George Anthony Richard Menezes' career. Neal and Massey Holdings was divesting several of its interests in the region, including the one here in Grenada. Mr. Menezes made a successful bid for the business. And in that year, George F. Huggins and Company Grenada Limited became 100% Grenadian owned. A rights issue of shares placed the majority of the company's shareholding in the hands of management and members of staff who at that time had tenure with the company. Mr. Menezes' service to country went far beyond his work at Huggins. He had over 5 decades made a terrific contribution to the development of Grenadian society. He chaired and served as director on countless boards. As chairman of the Grenada Airports Authority, he was largely responsible for the speed at which the then Point Saline International Airport returned to service after the passage of Hurricane Ivan on September 7th, 2004. Some of his fondest memories, though, were fostered during his tenure as Grenada's director on the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the ECCB, under the governorship of his late colleague, Sir Dwight Venner. Now, as the first and founding president of the National Development Foundation, NDF, Mr. Menezes received an award from the Organization of American States, the OAS, for the fastest formed foundation issued pursuant to the OAS petition to governments. he traveled to Washington, D.C. to receive this award from Secretary General of the OAS, Buenos Aires, on behalf of Grenada. Mr. Menezes always had a deep faith in God. His work for the Catholic Church included Director of Finance Committee of the Diocese of St. George in Grenada. He and his wife Nuala were also national coordinators for the Catholic Marriage Encounter movement for many years. On September 17, 2016, Richard and Nuala Menezes themselves celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. They have 3 children, Luana, Richard, and Anya. 15 years, or it should be about 21 years ago, with loving arms, Mr. Menezes welcomed his first grandchild, Christian, and soon thereafter, Graham, Lindsay, Ryan, and Sienna followed. As much as he has been a dedicated managing director for 5 decades, those who knew him well will know that his foundation has always been his love for his family, and by extension, for people. It is no surprise that Mr. Menezes can be correctly categorized as a trailblazer and barrier breaker, a man with an appetite for progress through his vision and enthusiastic capacity to deliver. His passion for people shone through the many stars he created by having an eye for potential and taking them under his wings, thus causing them to believe in themselves, with the results mutually positive and beneficial. His tenure in the Rotary Club was another awe-inspiring one, as I recall his personal interest in us back then as Rotaractors in the early 80s. Not to mention the several people who encountered him during his service club community activities and, of course, parties. His tenure on the board of directors of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce back in the contentious years for politics and economics cannot go unnoticed either. He was a businessman with the cojones to have stood up to both Gary and the revolutionaries. Interestingly, the revolutionaries grew to respect him, for he was really about country, having adopted Grenada wholesale as his homeland. After all, we must remember that he came to Grenada in 1962 and fell in love with the quaintness of the place and always admitted to Grenada being synonymous with important achievements in his career and personal life. I recall the late Sir Royston Hopkin of Spice Island Beach Resort fame saying that Mr. Menezes was quite a brave man who was blessed with sound principles and one who really had a deep love for Grenada and everything Grenadian. What is the average 21, 25, 29 or 32-year-old man or youth doing with his or her life in this modern 21st century here in Grenada right now as we speak? You can call the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s backward and primitive if you will, but without much facilities, young people back then had a passion to succeed and lift the bar. I want to recap some of the high points of Mr. Menezes' life or career or achievements, if you will. He made Grenada his home in 1962, when at the age of 21, he was transferred from Guyana while working at the Royal Bank of Canada as chief cashier, 21 years old. He met his partner for life, Nuala Brown, in 1966 and married her that same year at the age of 25. you know, 1966, he took up the position with George F. Huggins and Company Grenada Limited as credit controller. 1970, at the age of 29, he became marketing manager for retail and was placed in charge of the entire Young Street operations. At the age of 32, ascended to the position of board member, and on January 1st, 1974, he became the youngest CEO managing director ever to be appointed by Huggins. On his 25th anniversary with Huggins as their CEO, in the year 1998, Mr. Menezes led a management and staff buyout of 100% shares of Huggins from the Neil and Massey Holdings. His service to this country was rounded up at 50 years.
EDDIE-FICATION with consultant human resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited, Antillean Group, Country Cold Store.
The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and or affiliates of this program.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful. Welcome back, folks. Now, I have had the personal experience that will sew up this man's love for people, especially when he recognized one as genuine. He would do anything to contribute to lifting their lot, which is really what we're called upon to do as people. I was one such recipient of his genuine admiration. As I said at his 50th anniversary and retirement ceremonies, in personal tribute to him in February of 2017, 5 years ago, Mr. Menezes showed up just when I needed what he showed up with most back then. During this 1998 period, when he led his management and staff buyout of Huggins from Neil and Massey Holdings, Mr. Menezes called me and offered me the opportunity by way of public relations contract to manage the image of the buyout in respect of influencing public opinion. Those were my volcanically hot and explosive years on radio, when battle lines were drawn between the political party and government at the time that everyone knows I have never been drawn to support. Now, during that period, some businesses were afraid to be seen to be doing business with me for fear of victimization, as others had been known to suffer. Needless to say, things were a little groupy with me as work was scarce as a result, and of course, I could well have done with the contract Mr. Menezes showed up with back then, which was pretty handsome. As he declared, he wanted the right man for the job and could not be bothered about what which politician felt about his decision, because he has a company to run. Now, that man was a man of substance. But interestingly, he wasn't the only, and I think I should seize this opportunity to mention a few others here. He joined people like Alan Bierzinski of Hubbard's, Azam Rahman of Spice Isle Retreaders Limited, Hugh Dolan of Grenada Cable Vision Limited, and Anselm Latouche of Air Conditioning Inc. back then, now Cooling Tech Limited. I have always had the greatest respect and highest regard for these gentlemen and the businesses that they run. Mr. George Anthony Richard Menezes, like other local greats and achievers as Sir Royston Hopkins, Mr. Monty St. John of Barclays Bank fame, Sir Carlisle Glean, former Governor General of Grenada, Mrs. Ursula Antoine, MBE, would go to the great beyond but will never be forgotten because Mr. Menezes, like them, lived. Very, very interesting. He rolled with humility, even though he enjoyed prominence in society. His name was never one day called in hanky-panky and undesirable activities. No. The name Richard Menezes is synonymous with standard, structure, focus, fear of God, charity, love, and genuine concern for others. Traits which, second to none, hard to beat. But you see the last one, the genuine concern for others? Those were manifested by all those who observed him. They would have seen in the way he treated with his family and relatives, which became very effortless for him to treat all others. The admonition of all whom he is survived by, to include his dear wife and lifelong partner, Mrs. Nuala Menezes, his 3 children, Luana, Richard, and Anya, and five grandchildren, Christian, Graham, Lindsay, Ryan, and Sienna, together with family huggings. I say, be strong. Take a page from Mr. Menezes' book and proceed in the same spirit as he did while he was alive to contribute meaningfully, so that when the trumpet sounds for you or the bell rings in your life's journey, you would leave a rich and lasting legacy as evidence that you were alive. Mr. Menezes never gave service for recognition. And so this proverbial tree that lies today will continue to be best measured horizontally for his massive contributions to his adopted homeland that he delivered more to than many of us who were born here. May his soul rest in eternal peace, for he was indeed a jolly good fellow. I'm in, I'm out, and I am gone. So take good care until my 108th edition of Edification. Take great care, folks.
EDDIE-FICATION with consultant human resource development and training specialist Eddie Frederick is powered by Grenada Cooperative, Bank Limited, Antillean Group, Country Cold Store.
Living with the pandemic hasn't been easy, but that does not mean that life has to fall apart. Work, play, and take care of your finances from home. Connect with friends on social media, host Zoom meetings with colleagues, and use Co-op Bank's e-banking to pay your bills and manage your funds. Log on to www.grenadacoopbank.com and sign up for Co-op Bank's e-banking.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Co-op Bank introduces e-payments, our new e-banking feature that allows you to send money to friends or family. E-payments, the swift, simple, and secure way of transferring money.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance. insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
You are offered a wonderful opportunity to win a grocery coupon to the tune of $250, redeemable at any of the food fairs. All you've got to do to qualify is like, share, comment, and follow Edification on any of our social media platforms. This promotion continues for all of March with one draw on Friday, April 1st. The winner will be announced immediately after advising the said winner. Any overseas winner is asked to kindly transfer their winning to a relative or friend who lives in the state of Grenada. I am extending an open invitation to any individual or company tuned in to come on board and assist with our drive to whip up an interest in getting more of our young people to pull up their chair and pay attention to the instructive thoughts and ideas shared on this program as we seek to edify them to make better decisions that would help to shape a better future for themselves and the future security of the nation as a whole. Join me in bringing excitement to our audience with a chance to win something that can brighten their corner in these challenging times. Reach out and touch someone as regularly as you can afford. Of course, due recognition will be given to you for your active partnership in this regard. Thanks in advance.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick